talk about romantic relationships. What counts as a romantic relationship? How do we expect a romantic relationship to work? What are the expectations? Like, how much time are you supposed to spend together? Is anybody else involved in the relationship? Who decides who gets to be in the relationship? These are some of the things that, we often have preconceived notions about what a normal relationship is or what we expect from relationships, but they're not universal. All right, so first let's acknowledge that a lot of people, when they think of a relationship, they think of something that is committed or monogamous in the sense that you have one partner with another partner, one man, one woman, two men, two women, maybe a non-binary individual with someone else. All right, we have pairs. We usually think of a couple being in a romantic relationship. And sometimes we jump to thinking of marriage or something that resembles marriage, where it's a committed relationship. But you certainly have people that have more casual relationships where, maybe they're going on dates, they're seeing somebody, and we have different terms that are used by different cohorts. But, maybe you have multiple people that you are seeing with maybe the potential for romance, the potential for a sexual relationship, or even something more serious or committed down the line. Now, when we talk about marriage, we have to talk about the fact that the Western version is not necessarily the only version of marriage. Some cultures do have arranged marriages, and so that's where, instead of the couple deciding who's going to be in the couple, that family members get to choose a partner for their children, essentially, and it's often negotiated like a business deal. And so the families decide on the marriage for practical, pragmatic reasons, things like socioeconomic status or land. Now, to most Western individuals, that often seems like, well, that's weird. That goes against my idea of romance. But the Western idea of romance is actually quite new. For a lot of history, a lot of marriages sort of took this practical approach, particularly for people with money, who had those resources to figure out how to divvy up or how to acquire more. And so the idea of marrying for love, that hasn't always been the norm or the expectation. Now, another thing to acknowledge is many people engage in romantic or sexual activities without a committed relationship. And I know we know that as people living in the world and paying attention. But some individuals will engage in hookups or hookup culture. And that's where you stay single. Nobody's tying me down. Staying single and having several one-time sexual encounters, sexual interactions. And these are people, they do not become your partner. You are not going to consider them boyfriend or girlfriend or anything like that. This is a one-time sexual encounter. Okay, we're done. It was just a hookup. And I know many of us know what this is, but let's just make sure we're being straight with the terminology, because people might use slightly different terminology and mean different things. All right, and then you have friends with benefits. Right? That's where, well, you know the person, right? Hookups are a little bit different because they could be somebody you don't know at all. Friends with benefits means you know the person, you trust that person, and you are having a casual sexual relationship with them repeatedly. That's the other thing that makes it different. With a hookup, it's just a one-time thing. With friends with benefits, the idea is you are occasionally, having sexual relations with a person, but you're not committing to them. You're like, oh, this is not a relationship. I am meeting my sexual needs with this person. I am not tying down. This is not for emotional needs. And so the relationship remains at friendship status. All right, so it's friendship that involves sexual behavior, sexual relations. And I know sometimes students will be like, well, that makes no sense. Why would you do that? We have to remember people's reasons for sexual behavior. They differ. Some people, they absolutely do not require the intimacy part. The physiological arousal and passion are completely separate from the emotional intimacy, emotional bonding that can be involved in a relationship. For some people, they just want sexual satisfaction. Other people, not only do other people like or prefer to have the emotional component, but there are some people that do not develop sexual attraction until they develop an emotional connection to somebody. And there's actually a label for that. Demisexual. I always thought this was a weird word because demi like means half, like you're what? You're half sexual. But a demisexual individual, and they even have their own pride flag for Pride Month and stuff like that. But a demisexual is someone who they're interested in sex and sexuality, and it could be same-sex relationships, opposite-sex relationships, but they don't develop those feelings. They don't develop the sexual desire for a person until they have an emotional connection, until they have intimacy. They have to get to know a person first before it's even possible to think of somebody in a sexual manner. All right, so think about it. You might know people who are demisexual, and they just might not know, you might not know, they might know the word for it. All right, and then we have polyamory, where you have multiple committed relationships at once. There are different labels for different types, but I just want you to know in general that, yeah, some people engage in polyamory. All right, so that's your basic gist on different options, different types of relationships that can exist out there. Not everybody does romance and relationships the same way. Okay, that's coming up. All right, so next video, we're going to talk about some of the things you consider when you're in a relationship to try to figure out things like, are you satisfied? Stuff like that.